All right, I'm excited for this lesson. This talk is titled The Wholehearted Man and the Cock-Embodied Man. And I have a sense of what ground I want to cover here in this talk, but really I'm entering a conversation right now that is ongoing, and it's happening between us, but it's also happening in the world at large. And this is around the transformation of the powers between men and women. And so I'm just going to launch into it recklessly. Hear what you may, and if there's something that doesn't land right or sit right for you, let that go. That's a good way to approach this subject, because in this conversation about the truth sword, which has really got a lot to do with your voice and your personal power, a lot of it has to do with this embodiment: backbone, balls, and heart. And so this talk is really much about the cock and balls of that equation, and the real base note of your primal energy, awareness, and intent. I want to start with this quote from Oscar Wilde, and he said, everything is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. And I love that quote because it's quite provocative. And I want to enter this conversation with the utmost respect, because there has been a lot of harm done because of the misuse and misfiring of these fires inside of us. I wasn't raised in this knowledge. I was raised with a lot of the mainstream narrative and the way that it distorts sexual energy and distorts the male gaze and essentially preys on the male gaze. In terms of marketing, we get sold everything with sex. Sex sells. And sex is very closely connected to money and desire, obviously. So this conversation and coming into right relationship with your power is about healing the schism between sex and spirit in an embodied way. It's about coming home to the body. And if premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction has been something you've struggled with, then reach out to me outside of this course, because I have a whole other toolkit around embodiment that I work with the men on transforming those patterns. Because really it's happening usually because on some level we're stuck in our heads and we're not in our bodies. That's why by this point in this course, I'm assuming you are inside of some type of fitness commitment where you are up-leveling your physical fitness so that you're getting in your bones, in your tissues, in your body. Yeah, so this is the base note. I've got some notes here, so I'm going to refer to. Firstly, there's this quote from Osho, and around this paradox of sex and spirit, he said, every time I meet a prostitute, she wants to talk about God. And every time I meet a priest, he wants to talk about sex. I want to also enter this conversation around this inversion that I see happening in the world, where there is what we could call feminized masculinity and a masculinized femininity. And this inversion is a depolarization and a neutralization of the polarity of having men be in touch with their masculine core, and for women to be in touch with their feminine essence. So this is this conversation of being a wholehearted man and taking your power back in a way that integrates your heart and your truth must also include the base note, which is the balls of the equation. And there's so much shame in our current landscape wade through, because this whole conversation is still a taboo. It's still not a place where we find a lot of conversation happening. So there's great power here. And just to even enter into the conversation of language and embodiment, how often do you hear a guy say when he's done something wrong or if he's been bad that he's been a dick? Or somebody might call him a dick. Why is being a dick a bad thing? Or if he's acting cowardly, or anyone's acting cowardly for that matter, we call them a pussy, or they're called a pussy, and why is that a put down? There's so much stigma around the power of our sexuality that is shame bound, and it's dizzying. Balls, for instance, imply courage. When a guy's got balls, he's willing to do something that's scary. Or maybe if he's a player, we call him a baller. He's in the game. He's in the game fully. And inversely, when someone's got you by the balls, they've got your power. So when someone's got him by the balls, his boss has him by the balls, his mother has him by the balls, his father, wife has him by the balls, then we see him as powerless or emasculated. So my challenge to you right now is to ask you, what has got you by the balls? What have you given your power away to in a way that's not serving? And where do you need to get your balls back bigger so you can be more brave and courageous? These are some of the questions I want you to ask yourself at this point. Let's see, where are we going with this? And there's a trend in the media where both men's bodies and women's bodies are objectified. So the real art of this conversation is dropping in below flesh and dropping into the spirit. And this is where we heal, because bringing sex and love together as a practice can be incredibly healing and heart-opening. And in this context, we can see the cock as a wand of light, a healing wand of light. And similarly, we can see the pussy or the yoni as an interdimensional portal. And when we look at these parts, these parts of us from the perspective of a yoga tradition or a martial arts tradition or Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, then what we can notice is that there's a lot of disconnects in the modern world that separate us from our heart and our genitals. Even most spiritual paths will happen up here between the mind and the heart, and that's a safe enough weaving, in any discipline. But the real next level is when we bring that weave and that true sword all the way down to the base note, and that you become fully responsible for your power, balls, backbone, and heart. And that's the core of this truth sword practice. This awareness is healing the disconnect and reconnecting those powerful lines. Like I said, I didn't start out with this knowledge. In my early 20s, I did a pretty intensive couple of years of studying, and one of the best resources was a book by Mantak Chia, which will be referred to in the notes below, and it's called The Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy. And in this book, Mantak talks about channeling that coiled serpent of energy at the base of the spine, channeling that energy up. And this doesn't have to be a woo-woo or mystical thing. It's just something you notice. It's something you can bring your attention to gently and notice that you have that capacity to bring that energy up the back body and circulate it in a microcosmic orbit down the front body. And as you do, you take charge of your charge. And I have a little visual aid here in my toothpaste, and this is a great way to demonstrate it. I don't actually want to spill any toothpaste, but imagine this toothpaste represents the tube of your body, the chakras of your body. And what would happen if your personal power center is pushed there in the middle and crimped there? I mean, I don't want to explode my toothpaste, so I'm not going to decap it right now. But when you push on that, the energy either goes up and gets caught up here in the head, and we overthink and we become overly mental, or it gets trapped down below in our lower centers, where our desire body gets out of hand, and maybe we become slaves to addictions, a porn addiction or substance use or strip clubs or what have you. So I love this toothpaste tube metaphor for seeing where your power is and where you need to bring wholeness back to your whole being and reclaim that power, because if the energy at the base of the spine gets stuck there, then it keeps us trapped on one vibration and one level. Whereas this practice of bringing the energy up and circulating it through the top body with our breath and with our attention and awareness and intent, then we bring it up to our heart and into our higher healing centers. I didn't actually get this practice until I was around some martial arts masters who I could tell just by being in context with them, in close proximity with them, they had this down, and they were using their energy to become stronger in their martial art. And there was some kind of invisible transmission that I received hanging out with these guys, training with these guys. So the microcosmic orbit is this challenge and this invitation for you to never allow your desire to become suppressed or depolarized, and ultimately to begin to understand and outgrow pornography if that's an issue in your life. And I know that if it is, you're not alone. There's a lot of guys who struggle with that, and there are ways to break through it. What does it mean to be a cock-embodied man and to move through the world with your power? It's a big game changer. Walk with that awareness, because it's not just in the bedroom, in your sex life. It's every room that you enter that you become responsible for your energy in as you move through it. Yeah, there's a few points that come from David Dita's teaching that I like to highlight. And in somewhat of a tantric tradition, we can imagine your desire. I'm assuming for the woman in your life, if you're in a relationship like that, imagine her desire and her attractiveness and your attraction to her as a slingshot that helps you move through her appearance and to get in touch with that infinite spirit beyond, in the great beyond. And in this way, we come into a deeper sense of intimacy with the great mystery and the great mystery of man and woman. A big part of this training in terms of cock embodiment is also to do with energy mastery. And inside of that is this matter of ejaculation. Now, David Dita likes to claim in his book, The Way of the Superior Man, that he should be converted or consciously chosen. And so that's another level of this practice, is working with that root lock at the base of the pelvic floor and practicing converting ejaculation so that that also comes up the spine and you reckon with your sexual energy in a way that creates more energy rather than depletes you. And this builds stamina, this builds qin qi, this energy that's even greater than the Chinese concept of qi moving through your body. It's hypercharged with all of that potency of your seed. This is Taoist mastery level stuff. So it's also good to be gentle with yourself and not really use it as any more reason to put yourself down or create unrealistic expectations, because really the practice starts with loving what is, where you're at right now, and beginning to take the next step that's just right for you. The thing about the practice and of looking at your sexual energy and mastering it, not only in the bedroom but in your rest of your life, is that it also brings us home to that theme that's been running through this course of your purpose, and that your purpose has to come before all other relationships. And again, like a truth sword, that purpose is a staff that connects you with the ground of your embodiment, the ground under your feet, and your connection with the cosmos, and your power to stand your ground even in the storms of an uncertainty in life. And that's what it's like in lovemaking, when the energy is so intense and it's so overwhelming that the only thing you can do is hold that staff or that connection with your breath or whatever is your focal point. The whole thrust behind conscious sex is that ultimately it can become nourishment as a form of superfood. And as you harmonize as a couple and take the lead and lead with the frame of truth and love and intimacy, you allow the woman in your life to surrender deeper into the flowering radiance of her femininity. And then you become like these dance partners, and you rewire old patterns and you reawaken in love. You heal a lot of the relationship distortions as you harmonize within your individual selves and both together as well. The rhythm of your lovemaking and of your connection, your literal thrusting and rocking, it reverberates out beyond the bedroom and touches the world around you. And how you twist, rock, and penetrate each other becomes a pulse that can feed your life, and it can become an engine and a creative driver of your universe. And it all just starts in the bedroom. So this is just a few words about the importance of taking charge of your charge and really inhabiting the full power of your ability to heal as a man with all parts of you accepted, all parts of you loving, all parts of you expressing themselves fully. So this is the end of this talk, but there's of course more to say because there's so much to this practice. This is really just an intro, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we're inside of this conversation, and you will see me in the next lesson. Peace, power, and potency.